1656, a year when the only thing deeper than the Bahama banks was the Spanish crown's financial trouble. And what's a cash-strapped empire to do when one of its richest galleons, the Nuestra Señora de las Maravillas, decides to intimately acquaint itself with a coral reef? Why, melt the most frantic, treasure-crazed salvage operation of the 17th century, of course. This wasn't just a recovery mission, it was a high-stakes underwater gold rush with sharks, storms, and some very sticky fingers. On January 4th, 1656, the Maravillas, laden with a double cargo of silver, royal taxes, and contraband, was rammed by its flagship and sank in the treacherous Little Bahama Bank. Of the 650 souls aboard, only 45 survived to tell the tale, rescued by the timely arrival of Captain Juan de Hoyos. The Spanish authorities didn't waste time mourning. By June, the first official salvage expedition, led by the military engineer Juan de Somovia Tejada, was on site. His team of 40 divers, likely a mix of enslaved Africans and indigenous people skilled in pearl diving, faced a grim scene. The galleon was shattered, its treasures scattered across a wide area. For 13 days, they worked tirelessly, recovering an impressive 480,000 pesos. But the Bahamas are fickle. A sudden storm not only halted the operation, but also sank 4 of the salvage ships, taking a portion of the recovered treasure back to the depths.
This initial foray was just the beginning of a multi-decade obsession. Between 1656 and 1679, Spain launched 10 official expeditions to pick the bones of the Maravillas. But with so much treasure came temptation. In 1657, a one-captain Iriarte was caught hiding gold from his salvage efforts and was promptly sentenced to death by hanging. Even the man in charge, Juan de Somovia Tejada, wasn't immune to greed. In 1661, he was sued by the crown for failing to declare 1,000,000 pesos recovered from the wreck. The hunt for the Maravillas treasure was a relentless battle against nature, time, and human nature itself. Sir Chuckledon says, "So what's the lesson here? When a vast fortune sinks beneath the waves, the line between sanctioned recovery and outright plunder becomes as murky as the deep itself." Lesson? The Maravillas salvage shows that the immense pressure to recover lost state assets can incentivize both remarkable ingenuity and spectacular corruption, reminding us that the greatest treasures are often guarded by the perils of human greed.
Gather round, ye lovers of larceny and maritime misadventure. Today, we're diving headfirst into the blood-warm waters of the 17th century Caribbean to toast the Gesell Van de West, the scourge of the West. I'm talking about a man so audacious, the Spanish nicknamed him El Grif, and some whispered he was the devil himself. This wasn't just any pirate, it was Laurens de Graaf, a Dutchman whose flair for dramatic entrances was matched only by his appetite for Spanish silver. Born around 1653, de Graaf's early life is a bit murky, with accounts suggesting he was captured and enslaved by the Spanish in his youth, which certainly explains his later career choices. By the mid-1670s, he was a captain for the French, officially a privateer, but let's be honest, the line was blurrier than a drunkard's vision. His real claim to infamy was cemented in May 1683, when he orchestrated one of the most cunning and devastating raids of the era, the sack of Veracruz, New Spain's wealthiest port. De Graaf, along with fellow buccaneers Nicholas Van Horn and Michel de Gramont, led a force of over 1,000 men. Their masterstroke? Arriving at dusk on May 17th, their fleet was led by 2 captured Spanish warships, fooling the city into thinking friendlies had arrived. While the town slept, de Graaf and a small force slipped ashore, silently neutralized the city's defenses, and essentially held the front door open for the main force to march in and begin the plunder.
The 2-day sack was brutal and lucrative. But as the Spanish treasure fleet unexpectedly appeared on the horizon, the pirates retreated to the nearby Isla de Sacrificios with their hostages.
Tensions flared between the pirate commanders over the slow payment of ransoms. A duel between de Graaf and a furious Van Horn left the latter with a festering wrist wound that would kill him. De Graaf wasn't a one-hit wonder. In July 1685, he led a similarly brutal 2-month occupation of Campeche. Though the residents had managed to flee with most of their valuables, the pirates terrorized the city, only departing when a superior Spanish fleet arrived. De Graaf was forced to dump his cannons and loot overboard just to escape. Despite his fearsome reputation, de Graaf eventually accepted a French commission, becoming a naval officer and even assisting in the establishment of a French colony near modern-day Biloxi, Mississippi, around the turn of the century. His final years and death around 1704 are as debated as his origins. Sir Chuckleton, so, what do we take from the tale of Lawrence de Graaf, a man who turned personal grievance into a geopolitical headache for the Spanish Empire? Lesson: the career of Lawrence de Graaf demonstrates that the lines between pirate, privateer, and patriot are often drawn by the prevailing political winds, reminding us that one empire's villain is often another's very effective, albeit morally flexible, naval asset. Picture this scene. It's 1565. The Mediterranean is the world's most dangerous bathtub, and the Ottoman Empire, under the magnificent Suleiman, is about to turn on the hot tap. Their target? A stubborn little rock called Malta, home to the last grumpiest crusaders in Christendom, the Knights of St. John. This wasn't just a siege, it was the season finale of a century-long rivalry, and everyone had a front row seat. The Ottoman invasion force was colossal. On May 18, 1565, a fleet of around 180 ships landed an army of up to 40,000 men. Defending Malta were the Knights, led by their 70-year-old Grand Master, Jean Parisot de Valette. He had just a few hundred knights and a total fighting force of about 6,000 to 9,000 men, including Maltese militia. The odds weren't just bad, they were laughable. The Ottomans made a critical mistake from the start. They decided to first attack the small, star-shaped Fort St. Elmo, expecting it to fall in less than a week. Valette anticipated this and reinforced the fort. For over a month, the defenders of St. Elmo held out against a relentless bombardment. The fighting was savage! The fort finally fell on June 23rd, but it was a Pyrrhic victory for the Ottomans. They had lost thousands of men, including one of their most brilliant commanders, the Corsair Dragut Reis, who was mortally wounded during the bombardment. That 1 month cost the Ottomans dearly in time, resources, and morale. With St. Elmo gone, the full fury of the Ottoman army was unleashed on the main strongholds of Birgu and Sanglia. For the entire blistering summer, the defenders endured what may have been the most sustained bombardment in history up to that point, with some sources claiming 130,000 cannonballs were fired. They repelled assault after brutal assault, with Grandmaster de Valette, now in his 70s, personally leading the defense on the walls. As the siege dragged on, the Ottoman forces were crippled by disease and dwindling supplies. Their will was breaking. The final straw came on September 7th, when a long-promised Spanish relief force, the Gran Socorso, finally landed. Though only numbering around 8,000 to 10,000 men, their arrival shattered the remaining Ottoman morale. On September 11th, the once invincible Ottoman army abandoned the siege and sailed for home, having lost, by some estimates, up to 30,000 men. The Knights and the Maltese had won an impossible victory. Sir Chuckleton says, so, the Little Rock broke the tidal wave. But what's the takeaway from this epic scrap? Lesson: the Great Siege of Malta teaches us a crucial strategic lesson. Denying an overwhelming force a quick, decisive victory can be a victory in itself. By trading space for time at Fort St. Elmo, the Knights turned the Ottomans' greatest asset, their numbers, into a logistical nightmare, proving that endurance can be a more potent weapon than brute force.